Mike wants to add something.
I want to ask a question. Since John Callan's been around for 30 years, I think you'll have an answer. In 1983, when David Gunn was general manager of SEPTA, he closed the R3, mainly because of repairs that had to be done on the Krapf Creek Bridge in Delaware County. He opened it after those repairs were completed. SEPTA engaged in a massive public relations and advertising campaign announcing the opening of the R3, reopening of the R3. After 6 months, they closed it. And my question is, and I never know to this day, why it was closed. Is it one lane? Is it brush cuttings? Is it what? I guess the reason I asked that is because of the survey that was done recently and said, question number 7, does the lack of regional transportation hurt Westchester? 86% of the people said yes, specifically commuting to or from Philadelphia. So obviously, and Byron, I'm not throwing something back to you, but it appears.
I was going to say the same thing, Byron.
It appears.
Anyway, your question, sir.
It appears that there is a definite need, or a wish, or a hope, or a seating situation to make this a reality. How high on the priority is that for SEPTA?
There was like 6 questions in there.
I was going to say, can we go up the last one?
How high is the priority?
I'll just pick up on the last one. Without being redundant, there are probably 3 to 4 corridor planning studies that are underway in various parts of the region. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of where they are, but one of them is in Montgomery County and Berks County. Another one is in Bucks County. There's a couple of issues that are big in the city. And we got to do this weights and balance thing. I always like to say that if a constituency, whatever they are, whoever they are, wants something badly enough, then there'll be push for it, there'll be support for it. There will also be money for it too.
Right.
And that last piece is a stretch for everybody. We're very blessed in this region to have a considerable network that goes back 75 to 120 years with 2 former railroads and parts of the third that we basically have today. And the way we look at it is we make our investments and our business decisions based on what we can serve in largest numbers most effectively. And the Westchester branch and a couple of others has drifted off the map, you're right. Maybe there was a reason at the time, but that was a reason 25 years ago, Mike. Putting them back is tricky, and I would like to say, at least looking at it. We haven't looked at that particular extension past Wawa for maybe 15 years in earnest. So I'd like to be positive and upbeat and optimistic and tell all of you that we will look at it. And looking at it requires your support, your constituency, your elected officials to also be as very interested as they sometimes say they are, but not necessarily when it comes to how are we going to split some of these costs, how are we going to go to the state, how are we going to go to the region and fund it. I'm just add, it's the startup cost that is incredibly prohibitive.
Just have a few minutes left, so does anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lori Zikowitz. We own Fawnbrook Bed and Breakfast in Westchester, and my question's a little different perspective. We have guests that come into town, and consistently I get asked, can you call me a cab? And I don't know if anyone's tried to do that in Westchester, but there are none available after 7 p.m., and the one that is available is oftentimes not available. And it's probably a question for Gary or Ernie. Are there any plans for any kind of downtown shuttle and or in and out of town shuttle? I mean, not just to my location, but potentially hotels, malls, attractions that people would be visiting.
I can try and answer that. I don't know if Ernie wants to chime in, but yeah, I can't speak for Rainbow Cab's hours. I know of that. I know of that fact. But you know, we do have town car services. There's other town car providers. If it's planned, town car services aren't technically cab services, so you need a little more
And
heads
they're
up.
expensive.
And they are very expensive. To go to the airport, as an example, you're not going to get a town car for less than $100.
Exactly.
So yeah, they're a lesser expensive option. I don't know all of that. The second part of your question, I think you mentioned the shuttle systems. You know, I kind of mentioned in my comments of some old shuttle systems, or I've had many inquiries for evening shuttle systems, especially with all the restaurants and bars in downtown Westchester. There is a young man that is trying to put a service together between, I think, the university and downtown in the evenings. He's supposed to start when school comes back.
I think so.
I don't want to be negative, but if nobody's going to fund him, he's not going to make it.
Right.
So he's not going to make it just on people paying $5 to ride that little van that he's purchased. I hope he is successful, but I've priced that shuttle 1,000,000 times, and I get the call every year, whether it be student government or other individuals from the community, and it has to be funded in some way. So.
Thank you. Mike, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted, 7 years ago, the TMA conducted a study really to see what the feasibility of a shuttle system was. I think Ernie, the borough was involved with it, Westchester University was involved with it, and others, and PennDOT, through their public transportation program in Harrisburg, was willing to look at the funding to do something like that. And I just want to let you know that Gary is exactly right on with this, because the biggest problem was the amount of money that was necessary to make this happen. But the only way we were ever going to get it through would be that the borough kicks in a fairly sizable amount, the university kicks in a sizable amount, the TMA, as well as PennDOT to do it. Unfortunately, that's history 7 years ago. The runaround that Gary talked about, Jeff back there, I inherited the TMA in 1996 in bankruptcy. I think the TMA owed something like $40,000 to Krapf Coaches to do this. And unfortunately, it was the lack of funding to keep that alive. And the only way buses such as Scoot and Link and other ones exist today is subsidies from the federal government and from PennDOT.
Thank you, Mike. I want to thank Mike Herron. I want to thank Les Toso, John Callan, Gary Krapf, Ernie McNeely, and Greg Kuprick for joining us, and I think they deserve a hand. Thank you. I want to thank Katie Walker for producing this fine event today, and I'm going to hand it back to her. Thank you.
Lloyd, good job. Lloyd, you and your cook did a good job of keeping us on time. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being here with us today. A lot of information, and I would assume that if people have some more questions, may be able to speak with you individually afterwards. So I want to thank everybody. Dorothy Kennedy really deserves a round of applause for pulling this whole event together.
Desserts and coffee.
Yes, there's desserts and coffee, so please take advantage of them. But Dorothy worked very closely with Derek at the TMACC, so this was a great program, so we want to thank both of them for pulling it all together. Also just want to mention the next upcoming chamber event is actually this Thursday morning. We are going to be at the Daily Local News for a coffee connection from 7:45 to 9 a.m. and we are there to welcome Carolyn Committa as our new mayor to Westchester and first female mayor of the Borough of Westchester. So please come out to that. We had a lot of great information here today, and I was very interested to hear about the study that's being done, and if there's a possibility for us to be updated on that, we'd love to keep our members informed of what the findings are. So thank you again to everyone, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.